Okay, so good morning everyone. As mentioned in the previous video, MMORPGs are in a pretty dire state. 2021 seems to release more potentially good MMOs than probably the last 5 years have done. I was wondering if I should give all of these games in the list a rating straight away, but I think that's a little bit premature. Instead, I'll put them in a ranking within themselves at the end. On top of that, all the games I mentioned in this video will get a proper full-blown review once they release. I plan on playing each game mentioned for at least 100 hours to give the best possible review for you guys. Anyways, I'm trying to be as concise and to the point as I can, so let's get going. Let's start with New World. New World is a medieval action combat MMORPG with survival game-esque game design elements. And that's entirely because the game started as a survival game, and also a PvP game, by the way. New World has since changed their direction entirely towards becoming a more traditional, maybe not sandbox MMORPG, but along those lines. They even announced normal dungeons now, which again makes the game change direction a little bit. Also, PvP is now opt-in only, again completely changing the direction from their previous full loot PvP idea. They had a slew of underlying issues that weren't so easily fixable. I personally made a huge feedback post back during the preview event in 2020. Issues ranging from horrible quest design to a very clunky and shallow combat system, bad optimization, and copy-pasted towns all over the world. I have a link in the description below for anyone wanting to take a look for themselves. Ever since then, they have taken a step back and actually acknowledged a lot of the issues, changing the amount of equipable weapons from 3 to 2 or making weapon cooldowns not overlap with other weapons anymore. They're definitely listening to feedback here, but is that enough to make New World the next big MMORPG? I personally don't think so. The game suffers from a lack of vision and drive from its developers, which is notorious for Amazon Game Studios. On top of that, the overall game is just too simplistic, especially the combat system. I'm predicting the game to last for about 2 or 3 weeks for most players. Again, New World has shown they're willing to make changes. They're willing to even change direction entirely. But can all of those underlying problems be addressed without making an entirely new game? Although while the combat felt very simple, it also felt fairly impactful. So there's some potential there. New World is set to be released in August of this year, 31st to be exact. But that's considering they've already delayed the game multiple times, so that could happen again. I'm looking forward to trying out the full version this year. Until then, let's wait and see. I'll link a video of the entire new update of New World in the description down below. This one right here is probably my personal favorite potential release of this year. But that also doesn't mean it doesn't come with its own set of problems. I played Lost Ark extensively when it released in Russia. Absolutely outstanding attention to detail, great world building and atmosphere, a fluid yet impactful combat system with a somewhat deep skill customization system, PvP arenas, ranked 3v3, bosses, raids, raid bosses, and a very diverse list of activities. There were just some very specific issues that left a bad taste in my mouth. I've not yet played Season 2, but most of the issues seem to have not changed. The game puts a lot of effort into restricting player progression through time gating. Weeklies, dailies, for some which you can actually buy an additional dungeon run or boss run in the cash shop, making PvE pay to win. On top of that, to min-max your gear and to circumvent those time gates, high-end PvE players seemed to play multiple characters to funnel resources into the main character. I heard this has gotten worse since Season 2. I'm not 100% sure on that one though. Another big problem is the way PvP is set up. The main PvP modes are 1v1 King of the Hill, where you play in a team of 3 and rotate players once one is defeated. The second one is 3 versus 3, which is first and foremost not very well balanceable, since some classes are designed for solo play and some others are designed for bigger AoEs, better AoE CC, and group buffs. But the real issue here is that you can't queue up with a pre-made team. There are also more supportive classes in Lost Ark like Bard, but now it's RNG in what team you will land in, essentially making Lost Ark ranking as frustrating as something like League of Legends solo queue. Imagine playing WoW 3v3 arena with no option to queue with your friends or your team. Or did I mention that 3v3 solo queue is the only ranked PvP in Lost Ark? There's no normal 101 mode and no 101 ranked. So to summarize, Lost Ark is an outstanding foundation, but their endgame is extremely lackluster and feels more like a chore most of the time. Unless you just care about PvP, in which case, as long as you can stand the RNG element of solo queue, will be quite a fun experience, since gear is balanced out completely. So I'll predict Lost Ark's success to be completely dependent on the execution in the West. How much pay to win will we get? How many classes will release with the game? How much time gating is too much time gating?
전쟁의 시대 MMORPG 엘리온
Allion aka Ascend Infinite Realm also has undergone quite a few changes and reworks. They've reworked their combat, the way flying in general affects your game, and implemented a lot more new systems. Made by Bluehole, the developers of PUBG and Terra, of course. While the game is apparently more pay to win than Black Desert Online and more RNG when it comes to upgrading gear, they have a lot of different endgame content systems set up, such as 1-on-1, 2v2, 3v3 arenas, raid versus raid fights, dungeons, so on. As a PvP player myself, this all sounds pretty great, but of course the pay to win will find its way into PvP as well. As far as I know, arenas are not gear balanced, meaning any advantage you can get over your opponent will ultimately higher your chances of winning. Well, you probably noticed by now, the graphics are not quite on a 2021 level. I personally don't mind graphics all too much, but what does worry me is the optimization. Allion is made in Unreal Engine 3, so in large scale fights the game might have its issues. Now take all of what I said with a grain of salt, since I've not gotten the chance to play Allion myself yet. Do I think the game has a chance to become a big player and compete with other modern MMORPGs? Probably not, but I can see the game cementing itself as another niche MMORPG. My prediction for Allion, and this is one of the least educated guesses of today's video, would be that completely dependent on how they monetize the game, they can definitely reach a fairly decent audience. As mentioned in the previous video, WoW TBC will probably be by far the most popular MMORPG, and well, re-release of this year. Blizzard had a chance to rewrite history by developing new content for the classic era that could have even led to the Burning Crusade eventually. But obviously, they take the easy route, which is in all honesty, not a dumb move. No risk involved and a huge demand from their player base. Personally, I think TBC is the best expansion WoW ever had. Wrath is definitely a close second, but the last Wrath of the Lich King patch was kind of the beginning of the downfall of World of Warcraft to me. TBC adds a new race for each faction, Blood Elves for the Horde, Draenei for the Alliance, and with that Blood Elves can become Paladins and their Blueberry counterparts bring Shamans to the Alliance. There's a new profession in jewel crafting, making sockets for your gear, allowing for more gear customization. And of course 2v2, 3v3 and 5v5 arenas will be added as well. Blizzard also stated that arenas will be cross-realm and probably have a similar MMR system to modern WoW. Oh, and I forgot to mention that they're balancing paladins to make them evenly matched for both factions. Both seals will be available to both faction paladins. The biggest issue here is that the game is already entirely figured out again. Well, just like the two games I mentioned before. It also launches with a level 58 level boost and a very broken economy. Obviously, both of these things just open the door for more problems to happen down the line. So even this release may be problematic. Well, now that we have the main course out of the way, let me just say that I think all of the games above have potential. That includes New World. I personally hope from the bottom of my heart that every single new MMORPG release is a 10 out of 10. But I also like to stay realistic. There are a couple of honorable mentions though that didn't quite make the list for various reasons. Let's start with Blade & Soul Remaster, or Revival, that is supposed to be coming Q3 of 2021. Upgrading the Unreal Engine 3 to Unreal Engine 4, and with that they planned a lot of additional reworks actually. So far they've only been showing art and content reworks as far as I know. I personally never got too much into Blade & Soul myself, but I'm looking forward to sink my teeth into the 101 arena system. Okay, so for the next 4 honorable mentions, it's more along the lines of keep an eye out for these, don't expect them to release anytime soon. Blue Protocol. Free-to-play MMORPG with a purely cosmetic cash-up. Anime-themed and action combat. The game looks clean, polished, and definitely something to try out once it comes out. But as a PvP player, this game will not be your choice, since as far as I know, there is no PvP in Blue Protocol. Next up, Ashes of Creation. I'll probably make an entire separate video about this game once they're ready to show us more. They just recently delayed their first alpha, called Alpha 1, to June of this year. A lot of rumors floating around why this is happening, but before I can really dig into the game, we need to see more. I'm personally very skeptical about Ashes so far, but again, we'll talk all about that in another video. Project BBQ. Now this one is pretty special. Project BBQ is basically the successor to Dungeon Fighter Online. Dungeon Fighter Online is not only one of the most played video games ever made, but it's also the highest grossing video game ever made. The combat of Project BBQ looks absolutely outstanding. I've mentioned that this game will also feature more open world aspects than its predecessor, but again, we don't know much about the game at all. There are a couple of gameplay trailers you can watch if you're interested. I'll link them in the description down below. And lastly, the previously announced Riot MMO. Unfortunately, that's about as much information as we currently have. They're making one. What it looks like, or plays like, or when they plan to release it is all up in the air. Riot Games is the background world of League and insane amounts of funding. If I had to predict one of these upcoming titles becoming the next big MMORPG, then I would put my money on Riot. Riot is great at making polished games, but not necessarily at innovating. And yes, those are all of the projects worthy of your attention. There are obviously many more MMORPGs in the making, but until I can find something with real potential, I'll not bother you guys with it. And lastly, here are my two separate rankings, one for the 2021 MMO releases, and one for the ones still up in the air. Again, this is just me predicting the future to the best of my ability, so this list will change whenever I make a new video. Anyways, thanks for making it this far. I really appreciate it. If you haven't seen my previous video about the dark ages of MMORPGs, feel free to check it out. And on top of that, if you like this content, feel free to like, subscribe, ring the bell, and tattoo my name across your forehead. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one. Peace.